Ian Garry put on a masterclass against Carlos Prates. His distance management, combinations, and mixing up the takedowns all led to his unanimous decision victory. And in this video, I'll be giving my instant breakdown, where we take a look at the clips, see exactly how Garry was able to put on this clinic, and how he almost threw it all away in the last 60 seconds. So stick around to the end of the video to learn the entire story of the fight. Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you enjoyed UFC Kansas City. Now before we get into the fight breakdown itself and talking about just how good Ian Garry is, because I was actually blown away by just his discipline and that performance was great, but we'll get into all of that. But for those who have watched my channel before, you'll have noticed a slight rebrand. Previously I was Fight Energy Films, now I'm Alex on MMA. I just think that tells you more about what this channel is all about. Fight Energy Films was more when I was doing documentaries and stuff like that, but now my entire focus is talking about MMA, breaking down the fights, doing predictions, doing reactions, and I really want to build a community on my channel of people who are interested in this kind of thing as well. Not necessarily in the gossip outside of the cage, but what goes on in the cage, what goes on in the mindset of the fighters. So if you are interested in that type of content and you've not seen my videos before, please do subscribe to the channel. And with that being said, this is a great fight to get started with because there's so much to get into here. Ian Garry's performance was sublime. Carlos Prates did leave a lot to be desired, or has he just found his level? So let's take a look at the fight overall. I think the way that Ian Garry started this fight set the tone for the entire thing. He was able to maintain the distance. Whenever he got backed up against the fence, his lateral movement got him out of any trouble. His combinations when he was moving forward, he was landing some really nice shots on Carlos Prates. And whenever Prates started turning up the heat, putting the pressure on, Ian Garry was able to level change and get the takedown. I was really impressed. And before I give my overall assessment of his performance, let's talk about Carlos Prates, because I think it was a really disappointing by the Brazilian, but at the same time, Ian Garry was the one who was shutting everything down. Carlos Prates generally is quite a low output fighter. It takes him a while to get going, but when he stalks you, so you've got your back up against the fence, that's when he unleashes the bombs. And he was just unable to do that to Ian Garry until the final minute of the fight, where both fighters were fatigued. Ian Garry got really hurt then, but Carlos Prates, I don't think it was a fight IQ thing. I've heard some people saying, how the hell did he let him get away with that? I think it was more pure tiredness, and I do think he let Ian Garry off the hook there, but it would have been so unfair if Garry had lost the fight because his performance up until that point was so good. And with that being said, I couldn't be more happy for Ian Garry. I think a lot of the hate that he gets is unjustified. He's a young guy, relatively speaking, late 20s, and yes, like all of us, he said stupid stuff in the past. But the standard at which some of these fans try and hold the fighters is just totally unrealistic. Ian Garry, from what I've seen, seems like a great guy, a great dad, clearly a great fighter. And I do think the court of public opinion is steadily turning on him. And after a performance like that, where he demonstrated elite fight IQ, I think it'd have gained even more fans. And before we get into breaking down the first fight clip, giving my overall assessment of this fight, I am daring to call it an Ian Garry masterclass. I think he demonstrated elite MMA everywhere, almost for the entire 5 rounds. And as far as Carlos Prates goes, generally a disappointing performance, but he showed everyone at the end that this guy is dangerous and he carries power throughout the 5 rounds. So whilst his stock has taken a hit and the fighting nerd's ego might be slightly bruised, I still think there is a way back for Carlos Prates. He just needs to add a bit more urgency to his game. But anyway, let's take a look at the first clip. Okay, so I picked out this first clip because it does demonstrate the distance management and the range that Ian Garry was able to establish early on to really take control of this fight from the first round. And as you can see here, this actually shows a strike partially landed by Carlos Prates. But Ian Garry uses this lead hand from the orthodox position, his left hand, to really stop Prates, causing him too many problems in the centre of the ring. It's just gauging how far away he is, not letting Prates pressure. However, here Prates lands, it sort of hits the back of Garry's shoulder here, a right hand over the top. So that's Prates' jab because he's in the southpaw stance. And as I'm going to keep playing it, this is what Garry did really well. When he's in the centre of the octagon, he shows his left hand, maintains the distance that way. And then when he gets backed up against the fence, because everyone knows how dangerous Carlos Prates is when he's got his opponents against the fence. You saw what he did to Neil Magny. Ian Garry did this lateral movement, but it's really good feet as well. Let's not underestimate that. Ian Garry doesn't get his feet all tangled. It's sideways steps, so that with just one foot movement there, so taking this foot from the lateral movement and bringing it over here, he's then back in a stance to get his shots away. So these are little details of his game which are really clever, which put him in range when he wants to counter, because it's all well and good lateral movement. We saw it with Michael Chandler against Charles Oliveira and against Paddy Pimblett. When they move laterally with their guard down, they can get caught. But here, Ian Garry moves laterally, but it's intelligent movement. Let's keep it playing. And now this is what he did really well. When Carlos Prates was being a bit lazy with his own lead hand, you can see it sort of just out there, not really doing all that much. Ian Garry comes over the top with a long left hook. Let's keep it going. But that's not it. Prates was throwing these single shots. Ian Garry with multiple shots. A right hand that just narrowly misses. And an uppercut that misses. But it completely gets him to regain the centre of the octagon. And the point of this clip was for Ian Garry's distance management and how he got in control of the range from early on in this fight. And this is such a good example. That lead hand maintaining the range in the centre of the octagon, and then when he felt himself getting backed up, lateral movement, explosive combination, and then retake the centre of the ring. And those first two rounds did follow a similar pattern. Ian Garry maintaining that distance, showing a takedown to Prates as well. Prates' takedown defence was very good throughout this fight. I think he got taken down a couple of times, but there's a reversal that almost finished the fight in his favour in the last round that we'll be getting onto. But the first two rounds was just Garry dictating the range at which the fight was fought. So the next clip we're going to take a look at is from the third round. And firstly, I wanted to take a look at a rare example of Carlos Prates having success on the feet, because his output is always very low. But in this fight, Ian Garry made sure it was even lower because of that lead left hand. However, here you can see that he's a bit lazy on it because he's had that success in the first and second round. Ian Garry was almost prepared to exchange with Prates in this round, go for those shorter shots like uppercuts and left hooks, which he did have success with. But as you can see here, that lead hand now, it's nowhere near as extended as it was in the previous round. And Carlos Prates is able to land a really solid right jab of his own over the top of Ian Garry's guard. And this just didn't happen nearly enough in this fight for Prates to have any success. He tries to follow up with another second jab, but other than that, he just backs off. Carlos Prates, his low output, which has been so good in the past for getting the timing of his opponents, eventually stalking them down to the fence and then getting them out of there, against a fighter who has good movement, great movement like Ian Garry, you're going to have to think of something different. You're going to have to increase the output, try and put more of a pace on them. And I'm sure it's clear at this point that three of my key takeaways from Ian Garry's performance are his ability to manage the distance, that lead hand control that we can see on the screen now, and his movement. And all of those things are demonstrated in this clip. I think Garry does lack a bit of power, but that's mainly because he does move so much. Normally you see big knockout power from fighters who really plant their feet and really let their hands go. But because Ian Garry's moving all the time, whether it's lateral movement, popping out shots, or moving forward as we're about to see here, that takes a bit of the sting out of the shots. So as you can see here, Ian Garry has that lead hand control again. Make no mistake, it looks as though they might be hand in hand here, but Ian Garry's been dictating the range of this fight, all fights so far, all three rounds. And just before this clip, Ian Garry had shot for a takedown and had landed a nice 1-2 on Carlos Prates. So here, this movement's really awkward. It's almost as though he's showing him his shoulder for either another 1-2 or dropping his levels for a takedown. But you can see that Carlos Prates shells up. Ian Garry throws an uppercut that forces him to shell up even more because he feels like these straight shots are coming. This is really intelligent striking from Ian Garry. Sorry, let me just get rid of that. This is really intelligent striking from Ian Garry. So as we keep it playing through, let me just get rid of that line. Because Carlos Prates, his guard is so tight here, there's room around the sides, which is why Ian Garry lands a really nice right hook on that side. And a crunching left hook as well. Really nice striking. He's created these openings for himself. And again, because he's moving forward and his feet aren't really planted, it does take a bit of the power off. And then a kind of shovel hook, you know, half an uppercut, half a hook to finish the job. But I was really impressed with that. And look, the narrative heading into this fight was that Carlos Prates was this absolute killer on the feet, and we did almost see that at the end. But Ian Garry won this fight on the feet, make no mistake about it. The way that you score fights is round by round, and Ian Garry won the majority of the exchanges. He refused to be bullied backwards by Carlos Prates as soon as he felt his back against the fence. Not only did he evade, I know that Ian Garry has come under a lot of criticism just for evading action, but really that wasn't the case in this fight. Yes, he'd take some lateral movement, then he'd come out with blitzes of his own against Carlos Prates. And of course, because this is mixed martial arts, you're about to see some wrestling as well. This was a really special performance by Ian Garry. Don't let people say it's boring or anything like that. When you're looking at this technique, now Carlos Prates, he's going for it more towards the end of round 3. It's clear that he's losing these opening rounds. So he lands a nice right hand on Ian Garry, and for a moment it gets a bit stuffy in there, it gets a bit up close. Ian Garry misses with a right hook of his own because it ends up around the back of Carlos Prates. Now Prates is starting to turn it up a bit, doing the thing that the fighting nerds do when they get a bit of confidence. You can see it marching him down. Let's keep it playing forward. Sorry about the slight lag there. Keep it playing forward, and Ian Garry drops his level. Really nice double leg. Catches Prates as he's coming in. As he's gaining that confidence, Ian Garry drops the level. Keep it playing. Sorry about this. I don't know why it's buffering so much. Keep it playing through. And he takes Carlos Prates down. Now, Carlos Prates is able to quickly get back to his feet. His takedown defense, as I mentioned, throughout this fight was really solid. But the threat of the takedown did a hell of a lot for Ian Garry in this fight. Not only is it so tiring for Carlos Prates to get himself back up to his feet, to sprawl and get away from Ian Garry when he's trying to clinch him up, it's also made Carlos Prates more hesitant moving forward. Because as you saw there, after a bit of success, rare success on the feet for Carlos Prates in this fight, he gets confident, starts moving forward, then Ian Garry just takes him down. Unfortunately for Prates, that just introduces some doubt into his mind. When he's moving forward, he knows that Garry does have the ability to level change and take him down. Prates knows that he can get back up, but he wants to be keeping this on the feet, keeping at his striking range, marching Garry against the fence and unloading some bombs on him. And Ian Garry just didn't allow that to happen. Ian Garry's striking was super crisp in this fight. And for people who don't see this as a fighter who is developing and getting better, I think you need to take your own personal biases out of this fight. Like I said, I think this guy's overhated. When it comes to the personal lives and things like that of these fighters, I don't really care, I'll be perfectly honest with you. All that interests me is what they do in the octagon. And as you can see here, Ian Garry gets that guard up by Carlos Prates, fakes a right hand. These things are so nice, that jab. All he's done here, he's not even thrown a proper shot, and he's got Carlos Prates to back up a lot. Nice uppercut. Follows it through with a right hand. Forces Prates all the way back across the octagon. This combination started with Garry's back up against the fence. This is not a boring fighter. He's a very technical fighter, a very gifted fighter, a very defensively sound fighter, which is naturally going to draw a lot of criticism. But the clip we're about to come to now showed a slight vulnerability in his game, and it almost cost him the fight. He was very, very close to being finished. I don't think that he was aware in the post-fight interview how close he was to being finished. He was probably still a little bit dazed from it. But let's take a look at the grappling exchange and how Ian Garry almost blew this fight. And guys, if you are enjoying this breakdown, please do subscribe to the channel. Comment below what you made of Ian Garry's performance. I'm asking you to do this before we do get into a grappling sequence on the video. For all you kickboxing fans, please don't tune out now, because this is a very interesting detail from this fight. So Ian Garry's been hurt a bit in the 4th and 5th round. This is really important context to note, because it did force him into going for some more takedowns. Prates doesn't need to land much, but when he lands something, he can have a lot of success. So Ian Garry has a single leg at this point. Carlos Prates gets this deep hook with his left hand behind Ian Garry's right hamstring. Let's keep it playing forward. This is a really important grip. Please note it. So he's got control of one of Ian Garry's legs. Now, let's not miss this. Carlos Prates, so he's got that grip on Ian Garry's right leg, and now he's just inserted a butterfly hook with his right foot. I don't know my rights and lefts sometimes. His right foot behind Ian Garry's left knee. So he can use that hook to elevate his knee, and he's about to do that. Let's keep it playing forward. So Carlos Prates, he's been semi-taken down, but because he has this grip, he's forcing Ian Garry's leg this way, and with his butterfly hook, he's got underneath Ian Garry's left leg. Yep, left leg, he's forcing it that way. So let's get rid of all these lines. So you know the direction in which Carlos Prates is pushing him with these grips. Really nice. Now this is important too. He then rides up with Ian Garry because Ian Garry's momentum's going this way, and because of Carlos Prates' attachment to Ian Garry's body, he keeps himself going all the way around. I thought it was in mount at the time, but it's not. It's into half guard. And this is where Carlos Prates started to do some real damage. And now the ground and pound that Carlos Prates put on Ian Garry, we can't really play that in full speed here. But as you know, some shots did get through. Ian Garry was really wobbled. So we're going to fast forward to a point in the fight where I thought it was all over. So we're here, and I think it was this point of the fight where Laura Sanko was saying the door is closing because Carlos Prates had Ian Garry hurt badly. And like she said, the door was closing. Ian Garry was slowly but surely recovering, getting more of his wits about him. A few more shots, clean shots to the chin, and he could have been out of there. But as we're about to just play it forward a tiny bit there, you can see Carlos Prates just doesn't throw that big left hand. So confusing. This is the point where you'd expect to see Carlos Prates throwing that left hand. And I know that he's been accused of having bad fight IQ at this point, letting Ian Garry back up to his feet. It does look criminal when you see it there. But I think it was more to do with his gas tank than anything else. Look, this is a fighter who does chain smoke cigarettes during fight week allegedly, and drink whiskey and things like that. But really it was his first 5-round fight. Both of these fighters, although the fight wasn't fought at a very fast pace, it was a very technically demanding fight with a lot of takedown attempts, a lot of movement. So really it's no surprise that both fighters were extremely fatigued at the end of round 5. And look, let's be honest, the rightful guy did win in the end. Ian Garry put in the best work over 5 rounds. But if Prates finished him with 52 seconds to go at the end of round 5, because Ian Garry made a mistake and Prates punished him with a nice sweep and some really effective ground and pound, then so be it, he deserved to win. However, in the end, Ian Garry did survive, and he won a unanimous decision on all 3 judges' scorecards. And I don't want the last 60 seconds of this fight, which they will do, to make the headlines, because the rest of his performance was outstanding. It was very good, and it reminded people that he belongs at the very top of this division. I think that Ian Garry's always going to have his haters. He's got one of those divisive personalities, and whilst yes, he definitely does say some stupid stuff, I think he seems like a good guy. He's clearly a very good fighter, and I can see him competing for a title sometime soon. He might be slightly deluded in thinking that he's getting it next, but with more performances like this, I can see Ian Garry competing for a title soon. I'm not saying that he'll become champion, but he'll definitely be at this division for a long time to come. This is a fighter who's improving. It's so important to note that as well. He's getting better and better, picking up new things, very disciplined, which is a rarity with a fighter this young. But anyway, that's it from me, guys. Really enjoyed Ian Garry's performance, very impressed by it. Let me know what you guys think. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later.